What elements of culture affect the negotiation process? Well, to start with, the definition of what is a negotiation, what it means to address disputes or conflicts of interest and seek some level of resolution. That simple definition is not uniform across cultures, so the understanding of how otherwise inconsistencies are resolved can be unique to a culture. Next, negotiation of opportunities. Many cultures don't see the opportunity to identify various discrepancies or disputes or conflicts of interest and the ability to address them holistically. Some cultures will focus just on one element at a time. Others are able to integrate these. So the ability to see a potential negotiation as what we see as distributive, that is a single issue at a time, or integrative, where you're integrating multiple issues at a time, can vary. Okay, the selection of negotiators. Different cultures have different practices with regard to who should be or who is selected to negotiate on behalf of a group or collection of individuals. This is obviously implicated when you have team or group-based negotiations, but the hierarchical structure versus experience and skill, knowledge, or ability, that type of thing, may vary as factors for selection across cultures. Protocol, this is the approach or procedures that one would undertake as part of a negotiation, the level of formality that is shown, and the necessary steps before one perhaps could even begin to negotiate the points of conflict. Okay, time sensitivity or awareness of time. Some cultures don't see time in a linear manner. They see it more as circular. Also, some cultures are not highly sensitive to things running over or being on time or being exact to an allotted time period. This can be a point of frustration between cultures that see these time preferences differently. Risk propensity, that is a willingness to accept uncertainty or to pursue courses of action that have an uncertain outcome. This variance or in perspective can change the alternatives that parties to a negotiation are willing to appreciate or even entertain as part of a negotiation process. Okay. Group versus individual negotiations. The perception of whether individuals or groups can or should or are capable of negotiating collectively might vary across cultures based upon how groups are formed, the hierarchical structures that exist, the roles that individuals play within groups, or just the individual propensity to be a part of a group as part of a negotiation process. This can vary culturally and thus affect the negotiation. The nature of agreements. Different cultures see agreement in different ways. Some cultures only see an agreement as a point in which individuals reach a common understanding. Others might see agreement as a place in which there's no longer a conflict or something that will actively animate someone to resist or compete or combat the other person. So the exact understanding of what is a resolution, what is an agreement, can vary across cultures. Emotionalism, the extent to which individuals within a culture are willing to demonstrate or show emotion to others. And of course, emotion is a big part of the ability to convince others or to seek concessions from others in a negotiation. So the responsiveness and willingness of individuals to show emotion can thus affect the process. And then cognition. Cognition is how we process information. Different cultures, based upon their experience, their exposure, and cultural norms or practices, will interpret the same information differently. And because of this, once again, it can create a lack of common understanding between the negotiating parties. And then lastly, ethics and tactics. What one party to a negotiation is willing to pursue will be affected by what they see as right or wrong. Okay, if they see it as unethical, they may not be willing to pursue that course of action or entertain that or use a particular tactic that they deem to be unethical, where the other side may be willing to do so because they don't see that approach or tactic as unethical, and this can create a level of misunderstanding between the parties and can cause emotional reaction in the parties. Now, let's look now at a few of the things that are shown to be constraints to negotiation that are culturally based. Culture can affect whether parties are able and willing to seek integrative negotiations that expand the pie, and then once the pie is expanded or all of these issues are brought together, how they are willing to concede or give up interest, that is, divide the pie amongst themselves. Once again, this is a focus on opportunity and whether cultures are willing to integrate issues into a single negotiation. Another one is sacred values. Some cultures, particularly religiously affiliated cultures, may not be willing to negotiate certain aspects of conflict. That is, they are not willing to visit it at all. So these are things that cannot be negotiated. Remember, parties only negotiate a position when they believe they can improve their position. These sacred values can get in the way of that open view of conflict or conflicts of interest. Okay. Biased punctuation conflict. This is the tendency of parties to a negotiation to see the behavior of others as conflictive or aggressive or offensive, and to see their own conduct as, in a way, as defensive to that, or their need to react to that as being defensive. Okay. Ethnocentrism, this is a focus on one's own culture. That is, you believe that your way, your cultural approach or way of doing things is right compared to others, and that other cultural approaches are some way inferior. Okay. Affiliation bias is when you start to judge another party's opinion based upon their affiliation with a group or particular other people. So you are not judging their position or the information or the dispute on its own merits. You're in some way associating the person with their group and bringing that association or bias into the negotiation. Conciliation coercion. This is a misunderstanding of what constitutes coercion and what constitutes conciliation, and a lack of appreciation of those concepts to the same extent. That is, what is coming together around a point or what is being forced towards an objective. Naive realism is when you interpret a situation based upon your own views and you assume that others see the situation the same way you do, that your way of viewing is the best way and it's the universal way, and anything that conflicts with that is wrong. Okay, Western canon debate, that is everything that has been studied in negotiation largely has done so with a Western mentality. That is, a mentality that is not inclusive of other cultural elements, and thus even the premises of negotiation are somehow biased or flawed when it involves cultures that do not adhere to the common or commonly understood Western culture. So the Western culture debate is the presence of a bias based upon the extent to which the doctrine or canons or beliefs about what is negotiation exist based upon Western premises. Fundamental attribution error. This is when you seek to judge a person's position based upon their attributes as a person rather than their position in the negotiation. You deem anything negative about their point of view as being a characteristic of their personality, so you attribute your view of the negotiation to them as a person, and vice versa. You can attribute aspects of the negotiation from how you see them as a person. So these are some common elements of culture that have been shown to constrain a negotiation. So collectively, you can see that cross-cultural negotiations can be quite difficult to carry out because of all of these elements that affect the negotiation process.